What is up, guys? It is DMG here, and today we're going to be looking at the Eredivisie players for FIFA 21 and why they are essentially one of the best leagues to have for starting your starter squad. Now, there have been some Eredivisie players that have been released. However, EA have now released the top 22 players from that league, and while there still may be a 75, 76 rated gold player that could be usable, or a high rated silver player that could be usable, the vast majority of the players that are going to be deemed usable have been released at this point, since again, Eredivisie is not one of those top leagues. So again, because the top 22 players have been released, most of the players after that are just going to be low rated golds or silvers. So if we take a look at some of the players that have been released, I believe Tagliafico, Onana, and Promes have been released before. As I mentioned, there have been a few Eredivisie players that have been released, but now there's Tadic, there's Daley Blind, there's Berghuis, something like that, there's Robin, there's Bizot, there's Dumfries, Stangs, and again, there's a wider variety of players that have now been released, as well as players in the past as well. So because we now have most, if not all, of the gold players that are being released from the Eredivisie, we can go position by position and see what positions are quite good and then what other positions may need some help with, and players you want to avoid and positions you want to avoid when doing your starter squad. So for me, one of the best options that the Eredivisie offers is the attack. They have a plentiful of left wingers, right wingers. They've only released Daniel, I believe, at striker, but you also do have Promes, who again could also be striker. So one of the things that I'm going to do in terms of my starter squad is do something like this. So you do have Promes, you can link them up with a wider variety of players here. All of these players, these first three, can link with them through nationality since they're both Dutch. And then we have Anthony here, who also plays for Ajax. So again, I'm going to go with Anthony just because, you know, he's quick, he has good dribbling. That should just be something you want to look for in your starter squad, at least for me personally. On the other side, I mentioned David Neres already, but you do have Idrissi of Ijuke if you need him to. Now, obviously, again, for these two players, they're not going to be on full chem unless you go with a full Eredivisie team. But David Neres, again, he's going to link. He plays for Ajax. That's probably the one you want to go with. And then at striker, I mentioned before, yes, you do have Tadic, who again plays for Ajax, so he'll link up there well, but he's more of a center attacking mid rather than a striker. So I'm going to go with Daniel Malin here, who, yes, will not link with these two, at least in terms of a strong link. But if you do need to have a strong link eventually, you can have Promes to link with them, since, again, both of them are Dutch. So as I just mentioned, we do have a lot of attackers here. We have a lot of good options. We have two solid strikers here. We have multiple good wingers. We'll take a look at some right wingers again. Berghuis could be kind of like a center attacking mid, kind of like a center forward. When I made a video a few days ago about Dalvin, this is very similar stats here. Stangs could be somewhat similar, however, he's probably not the best option. In my opinion, I think Anthony and Berghuis would just be better. And then you do have Robin, who, yes, his pace is slow, and most likely he's going to have a 2-star weak foot. And also, most likely, because it's just Robin and it's the name Iron Robin, that he's most likely going to be a little bit more expensive, but he does not have that bad of a card, right? 82 shooting, 78 passing, 86 dribbling. I think he could also be a good center attacking mid. On the other side, I did already mention David Neres, and you do have Bergwijn as well, who could obviously link to Promes and Malin. But then you also have a couple of other Eredivisie options. Idrissi, Ijuke, I mentioned before. These two guys would actually be very good. At least Ijuke would be a good starter squad player. Yes, he's not the best, but he's obviously very pacey with 94 pace. And then Idrissi has some good all-around stats for a winger. Looking in the midfield now, I mentioned Promes, who can play essentially anywhere in the attack. Striker, center attacking mid, left or right wing, left or right attacking mid, anywhere in that area. For Tadic, I already talked about him. Martinez, he looks decent for a defensive mid. However, I would personally like him more as a center back, just because his shooting is not good enough to be a defensive mid / center mid. You have Kudos here, who could be a winger, very similar to Ijuke. Good pace, good dribbling. His physical is actually quite good as well, so he's definitely someone that could be wing. In terms of other midfielders from the Eredivisie, we have three others here. Coop Miners, who, again, very similar to Martinez, could be a defensive mid. He does have better shooting, so that would be good. Midjo, Midjo? That's definitely not right. He actually on his card has 477 ratings. So again, 77 pace, passing, physical, dribbling. Could be a very good all-around player as well. And then you have Aiheteren, who again is kind of similar to that right winger that we've already mentioned, who doesn't really have the best shooting here. We'll take a look at him. Stangs, very similar to that center attacking mid that we were just talking about. So we talked about the attack, which has plenty of great attacking options. The midfield has a few options here and there that you can use if you really need to, but it's not the strongest. Now going into the defense, and I did actually see that the left and right back spots have a lot of good options there. So if we move Promise over, we can see what links he can get at right back. So we have Dumfries here, not necessarily the fastest, but good enough defending and very good physical. In fact, if you could actually find a center back who has very good pace in dribbling, you can actually put Dumfries in at center back instead of right back, who I think would actually make a much better center back overall instead of a right back. You have this Moroccan right back, good pace, great dribbling. He would be good in the attack. His defending is usable for a right back. Physical may not be the best, but I think it's okay. We have Sergino Dest, very good pace, very good dribbling. Defending and physical are both pretty low. However, again, for a starter squad, it's not that bad. And then you have Svensson here, who has 77 pace, but very similar to Dumfries in that his defending and physical are actually decent. Obviously not as physical as Dumfries, but he does have much better passing and dribbling. So again, you have plenty of decent enough options at right back for a starter squad. And then if you go over to the left back spot, you have a couple of good options here as well. You have Tagliafico, who's more of a top tier option, I would say. And then you have two players who I mentioned in my previous video with Vindal and Haps, who are very similar actually. Haps is just faster, but dribbling wise, they're the same. Defending wise, physical wise, they're the same. And passing wise, Vindal is better. So do you want someone who's a little bit faster, or do you want someone who's a little bit better at passing? It's really up to you, because both players are Dutch. They're going to be linking with Promes here. Now, in terms of center back, this is where it starts to get a little bit more rough. If you do happen to have some Dutch players such as Promes and Haps, or Promes and the other Dutch left back, if you have Malen in the midfield for chemistry reasons, you can go with a Dutch center back. You have De Ligt, you have De Vries, you have Ake, you have a few other Dutch center backs that could be decent. But in terms of center backs from the Eredivisie, there's not really a lot of great options. You have Daley Blind, who is 54 pace, so he's not going to be very usable in FIFA. At least he most likely will not be. And then you have Senesi here, who's 65 pace, I think is okay. It's obviously not great, but defending and physical wise is not good enough, in my opinion, to make up for that lack of pace. So with all the information that we have here, we do have some good options. So we have to link up the attack with the right back and left back. So there are a couple options that you can do with this. You can go with kind of what I'm doing here, with Promes in the center, and then obviously these three in the attack. And then you will need a center mid or a midfielder from the Eredivisie, something like this. You can link everyone. You can link that left back into the midfield. You could also do something like a 4-3-3 here, where you could get David Neres, Promes, Haps. You could get Malen in here if you wanted to, and go David Neres, Malen, and Haps. You go similar on the right side with Anthony, Promes, and then the variety of right backs here. This is one of the better leagues, at least better starter squad leagues, that you can use in the beginning of FIFA 21. So that is going to be it for this video, guys. Make sure to like and subscribe down below if you enjoyed this video. And like I said, that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. This has been DMG. Peace.